So then what happened? Well, naturally there was a lot of initial reluctance and uncertainty within the overall population of Japan. I don't really blame them, do you?
No, not really.
Yeah. Now, there's no vouching for every single person at that time, but over the course of the remainder of the 19th century, general attitudes towards the Westerners and the Western world gradually changed. And this is well reflected in certain manga and anime, and also in the classic literature. Speaking of which, it is that time.
Yay!
Now then, yeah, because this is what we're all here for, I know. Now, some of these are more grounded in reality, while others, not so much. Let's start with one in the latter category. I think we all know this one. It's only been around for, oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying this, almost 20 years. Kuroshichu, Black Butler. I fumbled that. In the tail end of the Victorian era, a young earl carries out solving crimes in the underworld for the queen with the aid of his ever-loyal butler, who is actually a demon. I think we all know this one well enough, whether it was one of your first fandoms, or the starting gate for historical anime in general. And as it was first published all the way back in 2006, I still cannot believe that 2006 was 19 years ago. What?
No.
I'm getting older by the day. It's gone on a rather diverse age range within the fan base as well. All of whom appreciate it for all it has to offer. And not to mention that this and the next example both have really great transgender representation. You know, with Black Butler, you have Grell, who is a trans woman. Although, unfortunately, most of the characters barely acknowledge this, but we'll just overlook that part. The next example, I can't say who the character is without spoiling how I know that he's trans, but let me tell you, the pipeline between this and the other example is very real. And that is Yukoku no Moriarty, or Moriarty the Patriot.
Whoa.
In this one, the three Moriarty brothers and their comrades band together to bring about equality in Victorian England by targeting corrupt members of the upper class elite. It isn't long, of course, before they have a certain detective at their heels, solving the mysteries that they created. Okay, I gotta be a bit biased here. This is one that I could go on about all day, but unfortunately that's just not possible this time.
Aw, bummer.
Yeah. Maybe some other time. Anyway, the anime concluded after just 24 episodes, but the manga is still ongoing and has even introduced new characters. I've got one more note here. I have to say it. James Bond, Jack the Ripper, and Billy the Kid are all in this series. Trust me, it makes more sense when you actually read the manga. Just trust me, brah. All right, on to the next one. We have Emma, a Victorian romance, which follows the story of a live-in... we got a fan in the audience. Which follows the story of a live-in maid of all works who meets and falls in love with an aristocrat. From there, they fight all odds and rigid societal norms, as we mentioned earlier, in order to be together. Out of all the examples here, I would say this one does the best job at really truly pulling the viewer into the time period. Now, even if romance isn't normally a genre that you pursue, it's definitely not one that I'm interested in much. But no doubt you'll still appreciate the many historical and cultural details that have been incorporated throughout. All right, another one that's not really grounded in reality. We all know this one. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, or specifically Part 1, Phantom Blood, or more specifically, if we're going by the anime, the first 9 episodes. Set over the course of the 1880s, the series follows 2 stepbrothers who are also heirs to a large family fortune. One becomes a vampire using an ancient mask, and the other masters a sunlight-based martial arts technique to stop them. This is one that I think is impossible to forget, even if you never really get into it, for all the right reasons, of course. Although I gotta tell you, it does live up to the name. Like, I saw these episodes, like, years before I even conceived the idea for this panel, and I still very much remember them vividly. It's been like almost, oh god, how many years has it been? Anyway, it's been a long time. I still remember it vividly. That's how distinct it is. Anyway, next one. Another one that kind of sort of in reality, but not really. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. And that is Nadia, Secret of Blue Water. In an alternate 1889, there's an enigmatic girl and teen prodigy who find themselves thrown in the midst of a plot to seek world domination, explore the mysteries of the world around them, and discover who the girl really is. Just entirely by coincidence, I've been able to watch this just on like the Retro Crush. And I gotta tell you, the lore, the plot twists, and the characterization are also really good reasons to give this show a watch.
It's also Gainax before Evangelion.
Yeah.
It's something before that.
Oh, yeah. Yep, there you go. There's another reason. All right. Just 2 examples left. Right. Admittingly, I didn't get around to seeing much of these last 2 examples. I kind of ran out of time. But I'll do my best with what little I do now. All right, we wrote Uni Kenshin, which takes place at the start of the Meiji period in Japan, and follows a former assassin who wanders the Japanese countryside until reaching Tokyo, and from there discovers a martial arts school that's struggling to stay afloat. One of the reasons I was not able to do more research with this example is because there's like over 90 episodes just in the original series alone, and a handful of spin-offs, which I didn't know until I started actually looking it up. So that said, you know, if you decide to look into it yourself, I don't think you'll be bored anytime soon. And finally, this last example, I only got like part of the way through 1 episode, very last minute, and that is Crossy in a Foreign Labyrinth, which, unlike most of the examples, is set in 19th century France, as opposed to the UK or Japan, and follows the story of a Japanese girl named Yune as she navigates living in another culture while residing with a lower-class family who, like many at the time, is facing economic hardship due to a higher demand for international trade. You know how I said earlier how everybody wanted in on the foreign trade with Japan? Well, that included France, obviously. And I think the show does a good job of depicting, like I said, I didn't get that far in, but I think it does a good job depicting how some Westerners at the time could be just as apprehensive about Japan and its people as were those intrigued by them. All right, with that out of the way, I've got some resources listed on screen. One I highly recommend is How to Be a Victorian by Ruth Goodman. Of course, anything by Ruth Goodman is worth its weight in gold, in my opinion. Yeah, she's just very, I forgot the words. Her knowledge on the time period is immense. That's what I mean to say. There's also Decline and Fall of British Aristocracy. It's kind of a big read. It's a very thick book, but you know, if you can spare the time, I think it's worth looking into. And then we also have Victorian House and Victorian City, Everyday Life in Dickens' London, both by Judith Flanders. We also have London Labour and the London Poor, and London's Underworld, both by Henry Mayhew, which were written during the time period. So if you want something that was written during the Victorian period, that's not like just fiction, there you go. Also, well, website I added, it's an oldie but a goldie, thevictorianweb.org. Yeah, it's very plain as far as websites go, but the amount of resources it has more than makes up for it. All right, and on the right, just some YouTubers who I recommend on this subject. We have Prior Attire, whose photo we saw earlier. Who covered Prior Attire, who covers basically period fashion, not just Victorian, but just several different time periods. We also have the lovely Bernadette Banner. Yes. who again, not only insightful, okay, mouth brain, you're gonna have to cooperate here. Next we have on the list Crow's Eye Productions, who have a series on getting dressed in, insert decade here. A good number of which are getting dressed in the 19th century. And they are a production channel, first and foremost, so the videos are actually going to be really good quality. Just as entertaining as they are educational. And then, of course, we have English Heritage, the History Chap, and last but certainly not least, the also lovely Kaz Rowe, who has multiple video essays on various historical events. All right. Before we wrap up, does anyone have any questions?
Where does steampunk fit into all this?
Steampunk? That's a good question. Considering steampunk was conceived, years after the period itself ended, yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, it's basically like, steampunk is basically, what, we're gonna have to cooperate too. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, steampunk's more like a fantasy based, kind of Victorian, kind of like a few of the examples we saw earlier. Yeah, basically it's just steampunk's more of a fictionalized Victorian period rather than Victorian proper. But that's it, don't let that stop you from dressing steampunk anyway. All right, any other questions? Yep.
So the Great Escape, what led to that? There was a system in place.
Yeah.
It seems like it had to have completely fallen apart.
Oh, it seems I have run out of time. I can take more questions out in the hallway. I'll get to yours as soon as I can. If you don't mind waiting a minute or two. All right, well with that, thank you for coming and hopefully I'll get to see you all next year.